Who do you think pays the most in taxes? That question alone is a very tricky question to answer because what are you actually asking? Are you asking who is paying the majority of the tax dollars that go to the US government? Are you asking of the amount of money that somebody makes, are you going to pay a higher percentage, whether you're rich or you're poor? Or are you asking whether the total number of dollars paid in taxes comes primarily from the rich or from the poor? There are a lot of ways to look at this, so we have to break it down with nuance, look at it from every angle, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. So we can answer the question once and for all, whether the rich really do pay their fair share or not, and also what that actually means. If you don't know who I am, my name is Joe Brown. Back in 2019, I quit my job as a stockbroker so that I could teach people how money really works. And now I run Heresy Financial University, where I teach people markets and economics so that you can make more money investing. First, let's take a look at the composition of federal tax sources since 1940. You can see by this chart, the largest section is the bottom section, which is individual income taxes. Now, this one has steadily grown higher and higher since about 1945 and has always made up the largest chunk of federal income taxes. It's important to note that these are all percentages, and so the dollar amounts have wildly varied throughout the years and decades, mostly just going up. But in terms of the total tax haul, most of it has always come from individual income taxes. Now I need to specify that this chart only goes back to 1940. Federal income tax was started in 1913. So the United States existed from the very beginning until 1913, a little over 100 years ago, with zero income tax. In fact, many people say it's actually still unconstitutional if you look into the details of it. But that doesn't matter because if you don't pay your income tax, the IRS will still put you in jail. So really doesn't matter what the Constitution says when the man with the gun is telling you what to do. Now we've seen a decrease since 1940 in the amount that has come from corporate income taxes, but we've seen a massive increase in Social Security taxes. So in terms of where the total amount of taxes come from, the biggest chunk is individual income taxes. But that still leaves the question, who is footing the bill for those individual income taxes? The rich, the poor, an even spread between? Let's look. This chart is very blurry. I apologize. It's going to be hard for you to see, but I will tell you exactly what it says. It's directly from the IRS. The left-hand column here, P99 to P99.9, that is looking at the percentile of income earners that are the top 99 to the top 99.9%. And then this last row here, the top 0.1% is the top 0.1% of income earners. So these two columns or rows together make up the top total 1% of income earners. Now, if we go over to the right, we can see the column called average tax rate, and we can see that these two pay 30.6 and 29.8% respectively, which, as you can see if you look up the column, is much higher than any of the other percentage groups of income earners. In fact, the bottom 20% has a negative average tax rate. And so at least with this data direct from the IRS, in terms of the total percentage of your income that you are making, the top 1% pays the highest percentage of their income on average. Now, you may be looking at that still and thinking, yeah, well, maybe they should owe more, maybe they should pay more, maybe that tax rate should be higher, maybe the rest of the people, there's so many of the other people that the total tax dollars just dwarfs that. Let's take a look at all those. Here's a chart that shows the total federal, state, and local effective tax rates in 2024. Broken down by income earners. We see on the left, the lowest 20% paid on average 17% in 2024, all the way up to the top 1% paid on average 34.8%. And remember, this includes federal, state, and local effective tax rate. So what is an effective tax rate? It looks at the total tax money on all of your different dollars and then averages it out together to give you 1% of what you paid on in total compared to the total amount that you made. So even though that last $100,000 you made might have been in the top tax bracket, the rest of the money you made wasn't in the top tax bracket. So effective tax rates look at how much money did you pay in taxes, compare that to the total money that you made, and your total tax bill was, in this case for the top 1%, 34.8% of your total income. And as we can see from this chart, that is much higher than any of the other income brackets. If we rewind the clock just a few years to 2021, this is what the same data looks like. And we can see that even back in 2021, when people were paying less in taxes total, it was still highly progressive, meaning the more money you made, the more of your money went to taxes. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, it's gotten a lot worse because income earners who are at the high end used to pay a lot more. And by golly, nobody should have that much money. So let's take even more from them, just like the good old days. Well, let's take a look at the history. If we go back 20 years to the year 2001, we can see that the top 1% have increasingly been taking on more and more of the total tax burden over time, whereas the bottom 50% have been taking on less and less of the tax burden over time. If we take a look at this dual chart from the Tax Foundation, we can see on the top line, we're looking at the share of total income taxes paid. So about 45.8% of the taxes the government takes comes from the top 1% of income earners. And that's even though when we look at the bottom chart that the share of their total adjusted gross income, they're still only paying about 26.3% of that, yet it makes up almost half of all income taxes paid. If we rewind the clock even farther to 1980, we can see this trend continued all the way back to 1980, 40 years ago, where the top 1% of income earners over the last 40 years have paid more and more and more of the total tax burden, whereas the bottom 50% has gone down and the other groups are largely flat. The top 1% has paid more and more and more, meaning that our tax system in the United States has gotten a lot more progressive over the last 40 years, not a lot less, which means the highest income earners are paying more and more of the total tax bill. In terms of dollar amounts, as of 2021, the top 1% paid on average $653,000 in taxes. The top 5% paid on average $187,000, and moving down to the bottom 50% paid only $667 each. One of the reasons why the lower income groups pay so much less in taxes is because of tax credits, which have the most impact on lower income taxpayers, as you can see here. So there are a few takeaways from this. Number one, if income is the highest taxed thing there is, and the government gets most of their income from taxing individual income, then why would you want to pursue a career where the majority of your wealth comes from growing income? It means the more money you make in income, the more you're going to be working for the government. You're going to be working 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out of the year just to send money to Uncle Sam. These incentives are backwards, which means instead of trying to work on growing your earned income, you should be working on trying to grow your wealth in a different way, with tax advantaged ways, like running a business and being an investor. And by the way, with the headlines that we've seen recently, you don't need me to tell you that this year is shaping up to be absolutely crazy. We have elections coming up that are already proving to be absolutely brutal. Geopolitical chaos ahead. A sovereign debt crisis coming to a head as we speak. So that's why on August 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm hosting a free asymmetric trading masterclass live on Zoom. During this masterclass, I'm going to show you how to profit from things like massive geopolitical events, election chaos, market crashes, currency devaluations, and much more. I'm going to teach you this because in the past, these types of trades, asymmetric trading, have handed out some of the market's best returns to the people who knew how to use them. I've personally been using trades like this to grow my own portfolio over the last year. So if you're interested in learning how this works and what asymmetric trades I'm looking at right now, click the link in the description below. Attendance is completely free, but spots are limited. In fact, last time I hosted one of these masterclasses, more people registered for the event than I could fit on the Zoom webinar. So if you're interested, reserve your spot now, sign up with the link in the description below. I'll see you there. Back to taxes. In addition to working yourself out of the system and no longer seeking higher and higher earned income and instead becoming an investor and running a business, to the most heavily tax advantaged things that you can do, I feel it's also important to note that your fair share of what belongs to somebody else is absolutely zero, just like somebody else's fair share of what you own is absolutely zero. So in an involuntary system where taxes are taken by force and redistributed somewhere else without you having any say, the argument about who is paying how much and whether certain groups of people are paying their fair share is a distraction at best. The real issue is, why is there no choice to opt out? And the answer is because the services the government provides are so inferior to what the market could provide that if they did offer a choice to opt out, they would lose all of their income. They cannot compete with the free market. Otherwise, that competition would not be outlawed. And if you think, man, if you hate the system so much, just leave. Did you know that the United States is the only country on earth, besides one other dictatorship, that actually keeps on taxing you, even if you don't live in the country anymore and don't use any of the services? If you're a citizen of the US, doesn't matter where you live, you still get taxed. Now you say, okay, well, expatriate. But guess what? There's still an exit tax, and there are plenty of fees. And you already have to be a citizen of another country in order to do that, which is also extremely expensive, meaning it's reserved for only the wealthy. So the real fair share of what everybody owes in order to line the pockets of corrupt politicians and bureaucrats is actually zero. Instead of trying to make one group or another pay more, we should all be working together to pay nothing at all. You know, a little bit like how it was for the United States' entire history until 1913. As always, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.